You had to live up to the social expectations of the tribe, and not living up to those expectations meant you died. It was that simple. And so we have 80 to 90% of our biological lineage is built off of this software of like, if you don't live up to social norms, you're dead. I want to go back. I want to go all the way back. I want us to imagine that we are in a prehistoric tribe. This is like 30,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. Now, what is life like? Well, we probably live in a small band of anywhere from a couple dozen to 100 people. It's probably really just half a dozen extended families that roam the savannah together, eating a bunch of grub and worms and trying not to die of dysentery. Life expectancy was extremely short. You know, Thomas Hobbes had this great famous quote from Leviathan where he said that the pre-civilization man, his life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And for a couple centuries, there was a lot of debate around that, but we know for a fact now that, yeah, being a caveman fucking sucked. It was not a good time. Your life expectancy was about 30 years. Most of your waking hours were spent sourcing food. And if anything went wrong that day, you didn't eat. You spent roughly as much time sick as you did healthy. Disease was rampant. There were tapeworms, lice, parasites, diarrhea, constant food poisoning, malaria, gum disease. It was a tough time. People were not frolicking through the savannah. Let's just put it that way. And then on top of all of that, violence was rife, not only within the tribe, but between tribes. There was a lot of territorialism and raiding and pillaging of neighboring tribes. In the prehistoric age, it is estimated that anywhere from 10 to 20% of the population died from murder. So being a caveman sucked. We've established that. I think it's important to really spend a moment thinking about this because it's important to understand how high the stakes were. Let's say you and I go out on a hunt together and you are screwing around and not paying attention, and you step on a branch and the wild game like hears us and runs away. Like that's our food for the next week. You just like completely screwed the entire tribe for the next week, right? There should be repercussions for that. It would make sense that we evolved consequences for certain behaviors or infractions or the violation of expectations between human beings. Lying or stealing could really result in somebody's death. You know, today we see it, you go to a drugstore and you see somebody shoplifting and it's just like, it's annoying, it's disrespectful, like maybe you like make an angry comment or whatever, but like nobody's dying. In the caveman days, if you stole food from somebody else, like somebody could die. Like they could starve to death from the fact that they don't have that food anymore. Starting drama with people, disobedience to your elders or to superiors, like all of these things could result in people's deaths. So like the point here is that the stakes were extremely high, and living up to social norms and expectations, it was a life or death matter. And back then you didn't have an option. Like today in this day and age, it's like, it's very cool and fashionable to sit back and be like, yeah, man, society's not going to define who I am. I'm my own man. I'm going to turn my hat backwards and put my watch on my right hand because I'm my own man. There was none of that. Like if you, back in the prehistoric days, if you didn't have the tribe, you died. You'd be eaten by a predator. You'd be killed by somebody else. You would starve to death. You'd freeze to death. You would die of a disease alone. You had no choice. You had to live up to the social expectations of the tribe, and not living up to those expectations meant you died. It was that simple. And so we have 80 to 90% of our biological lineage is built off of this software of like, if you don't live up to social norms, you're dead. And so it makes sense that we would evolve a mechanism in our brains to be highly sensitive to the possibility that we are violating social norms and social expectations, to be incredibly anxious around the idea that other people might not like us, that we would obsess over our reputation or how other people see us. Because again, for 90% of human history, if you had a bad reputation, that could get you killed. So it is fundamentally a survival mechanism. So as a result, we kind of have this internal radar inside our heads that's going on at all times. And this radar is always paying attention to how the things that we say or do might affect the people around us and what they might think of us. And this radar is exhausting. I'm sure most people listening to this are very human in that they can share in that experience, and that it is fucking exhausting, constantly worrying what other people are thinking about you. But it is completely natural and human and very fundamental to our evolutionary survival. And part of this radar is that when we detect that there might be something that might turn the people around us against us, we shut the fuck up. We close our mouths, we don't say a thing, we sit quietly, just don't rock the boat. That's kind of like the default reaction to this radar when it detects something. And on top of that, not only do we shut the fuck up and not rock the boat, but we also have this tendency to internalize that this impulse or this thought or this behavior says that there is something wrong about us. It's not a purely transactional calculation of like, oh, if I say this thing, then, John and Mary might not like me, so I'm not going to say that. It's like, wow, the fact that I want to say this thing that is going to make John and Mary hate me, like I must be a bad person for wanting to say it. And that feeling that I must be a bad person for wanting to say these things, or I must be a bad person for wanting to violate these norms, that is shame. That is essentially what shame is. And all of this is important because it's important to understand the context of how important shame is for our survival as a species. Like this is the message that doesn't get communicated in this industry or this space. It's shame is universally like, oh, you should feel good about yourself and you shouldn't keep yourself down and you should be open and share everything all the time. And it's like, yeah, in our modern world for people who are suffering a lot or who have been through a lot, like that's a good message. In the broader context of human history, it's not only is shame inevitable, but it's like it evolved for a very important purpose.